Men go through their own life stages. Men. I'm not talking about boys. Because you have some men that are 40 years old and they should already be in the king stage. King stage means that he's already financially stable. He's already at a place where he has built his home, or he is ready to build his home. He is ready to get married. This is the reason why I say if a man is 40 and over and he's not married, he's a no man, okay? 9 times out of 10, there's always exceptions, okay? But I'm talking about it as a general rule. If a man is 40 and over and he is not seriously dating somebody with the intentions of marrying her, he just been jumping from one relation to another, he's damaged goods. Emotionally stagnant. He's stuck in the childish night stage.
So, this is actually something that I have heard a lot of women agreeing with.
Damaged goods.
And a guy who's just playing around. And first of all, I want to drop a poll because I just want to get a feel for what the audience thinks here in the room. The poll here, is it a red flag for a man to be over 40 and single? Now, I don't know if even women nor even men really understands what it takes to build yourself up as a man and really be qualified and ready to run, manage, lead a family. Because it takes a bit, it takes a lot. So I actually want to get my brothers here perspective, because when you hear that coming out of this young lady's mouth here, and many here in our culture, hey yo, what's the first thing you think?
I think I 50% agree with her. You know, I think that if I'm 40 and I'm not financially stable, that is a red flag. If I'm 40 and I don't have a relationship with Christ, or striving to have a relationship with Christ, that is a red flag. If I'm 40 and I'm still living at home or still renting an apartment with my homeboy, that is a red flag. But I also think the 50% where I disagree at is singleness is not a curse and marriage is not the answer.
Welcome back to the channel. You see the information on the screen, so you know what I'm about. So let's get into it. And again, it was funny, I just did a video talking about this just a few weeks ago, maybe not even a full week ago. And, you know, definitely it got a lot of attention. And I guess this is, like I say, a new thing that is going on with the gender war, you know, that we have, you know, in, you know, all over social media. And you know how social media is. Once it gets 1 or 2 little bites and bits, it's going to, you know, just kind of run with it for a while. Now, I think we need to, again, unpack some things before we dive truly deep into this. And one of the first things I think that we have to unpack is, you know, just being unmarried at 40, you know, from a man's perspective, is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think that one of the things about that is, like, I know for me, when I've talked about it, and believe it or not, I've actually said this off and on in some of my videos way before it became a trending topic. Because people for a long period of time, especially, you know, about 2 or 3 years ago, were just obsessed with saying that if a woman makes it to 35 and she's not married, then that's a red flag. And I believe now that the women, you know, are attacking back, saying, hey, if a man makes it to 40 and he's unmarried, that's a red flag. And I also remember, I think it was on the TV show Married at First Sight about 2 or 3 seasons ago, and there was a couple that got married, and the guy was 40, and the woman, I forgot exactly how old she was, but I remember she was like a pageant queen, right? So some of you watching, the ladies that are watching might know exactly what I'm talking about and what episode. And it was, you know, they considered that to be a red flag, that this guy, this black guy, had made it all the way to 40 years old. He had never truly committed to a woman. And he even talked about that he had commitment issues. And I think that's really what a lot of these women are trying to do. They're trying to figure out, does someone have issues? Because no one wants to waste their time, you know, especially women. Women really don't like to waste their time. And I think that when you start to look at that, and then you look at all these other little details, like in the past, when I've talked about it from the standpoint of, honestly, engagement. You know, that is generally, you know, the caveat that I put on it, because rarely do I see a situation where a woman can make it to 35, okay, and she's never been engaged, or a man makes it to 40 and he's never, also asked a woman to be engaged to him. I don't always look at it as marriage, because sometimes, people cheat at the last minute. People decide, oh, well, this is not, working out for me. But it's something about having another person say, I would be okay with living all of my life, with you. I think that that is a very important statement there for a person to make. Now, again, there's all these caveats. You're dealing with a lot of introverts. You're dealing with people, like I said, that might be working on degrees. So there's all these things. But see, the reason why I look at it as an engagement more than anything else is because, again, you're looking at it from the perspective of, and remember, most of the time when people are talking about this, as you're watching this particular video, they're not really talking about, I'll be honest with you, dealing with, situations where, somebody is out of what people consider the core dating pool. All right. And the core dating pool is around 25 to 45, maybe even 50 years old for some men. That is what they consider the core dating pool. And the dating pool has actually gotten older because, people are having babies later and different things like that. But back in the day, the core dating pool was definitely more like 18 to 40. That was the core dating pool, because that's when people thought people were going to get married, have children, and they were going to start these family lives. But now what we're seeing is, people at 40, even 50 years old, getting married, having children for the very first time, at those later ages. And people now aren't doing it as much at 18, and it's being pushed up closer to 24, 25. So I want to make sure I put that there, because again, people get in the comments and then they don't really quite understand what everyone is talking about. And I know that people, like I say, they don't give you all these, different clauses. And the reason why they don't is because they're trying to be concise. They don't want to go off. They don't want their videos to be too long. But you always have to remember what people are talking about. Now, that being said, like Anthony O'Neill, I 50% agree with the lady. I might even agree with her a little bit more so than that. And you could tell from the very beginning that the guy of Hardly Initiated, I'm not sure what his name is, but he didn't really agree. Okay, you could just tell by his attitude that he really didn't agree, with this statement. And again, a lot of this comes from your background, what you believe in, and how you're moving forward. Okay, I've always wondered why so many women, to be honest, this is a small aside, but why a lot of women, don't believe in God, or Buddha, or whoever it is that you want to believe in. Because one of the things that I've noticed is that men that don't have a relationship with God, they really have no reason to get married in the first place. Okay, we can talk about, like I say, from a human perspective, from a straight human perspective, especially if you don't care that much about children, okay, there's really no reason for men to get married. I mean, really be honest with you, at this point in the world, there's really not that much, especially a man that is between 35 and about 60 years old. It could be argued that if he's older than that, he might want it for protection. A lot of women have talked about that, but that's generally a man who feels like he's not going to be able to take care of himself. Maybe he doesn't have enough money to take care of himself. So now he's trying to find a young wife that, as he is getting older, she'll be there basically as his nursemaid to get him through the last portions of life. And there's videos out there where, that is always that catalyst, for a lot of women saying, hey, don't date older men. But not all older men believe that way. Many of them are healthy. But again, remember, there's always exceptions to the rule. But once you take God out of it, again, what's in it for the man, especially if you're not dealing with children? Okay. And this is, again, one of the main reasons why I still to this day, just don't understand, because when you're dealing with God, everything works better. And there's reasons why people line up, because if I actually am concerned about him, okay, I'm not going to stay in sin, which basically means is sooner or later I am going to marry, the woman that I'm dating, or I'm going to let her go. So it actually puts a woman in a much safer place if she's dealing with the man who believes in God. But when a man does not believe in God, like I said, there is no safety net. That man is doing whatever it is that he wants to do. So now let's take again this all the way back to the main point. With all that being said, and you run into a man and he's never been engaged, he's never been married, because if he was engaged, he would have been married, at least at one time, or he might not, but he would at least been engaged. That's why I say engagement is the point. And he's 40 years old. And if he ain't got no money at 40 years old, there's no reason for you to be talking to him anyway. And when I say no money here, I'm not saying he has to be overflowing, because what if he just went through a divorce, right? And so now his money is tied up. But the whole point here is he should have reached, like the lady said, a stage in his life where he kind of understands how to move and groove with money, how to move and groove with people, how to get almost everything in his life in order. And when that man comes across you and he is not willing to settle down, he is not willing to take care of children, he is not willing to be, in a family, okay, then that is a red flag. One red flag to me does not make it where I would walk away from a potential relationship. Because again, I want to talk it out. I want to understand it, a little bit, because everybody goes through different things in their life. So to me, one red flag is just not going to stop the show. However, 2 and 3 red flags are definitely going to stop the show. So if a woman is running into a man that's 40 years old, he's never been engaged, okay, but he has a lot of his life together, yes, I could see how a lot of women would say that is a red flag, because at this point in his life, he's had over 20 adult years for some woman out there to have caught his fancy enough for him to at least consider, being married to her. And if he hasn't done that, that's never happened in 20 years, then he's either picking very poorly, okay, or he's just wasting women's time over and over and over again. And I believe, again, that is the main point of the first lady, right? But at the same time, people say the same thing about women over 35. Because at 35, that is that woman's point, okay, where now she's had 18 years, 17 years, for a man to want to wife her up. But see, I think if we focus in on just that side of it, we're not giving it the full breadth of what it needs. See, that's what the gender war wants to talk about. But I'm going to give us a little bit more, because, I'm all about solutions. So recently, I hung out with Naka, okay, Onilifor, right? And I had her on the channel, and we was actually talking about this very thing, especially when it came more so to black women, because that was the topic that day. But when you're dealing with black men, it's pretty much the same thing. Like I've said before, most men and women, we really aren't that different. The differences generally come down to the non-negotiables. It's the non-negotiables that make a woman have a different point of view and the man have a different point of view. But as far as the emotion, as far as the pain, as far as the concern, as far as the worry, okay, all of that is still the same. So when a man has not gotten his money up by the time he's 40, he's generally in a lot of pain, okay, because he's very worried about how women will view him because he doesn't have that much money. It is the same thing if a woman is 35, okay, and her beauty is not up. Okay, at that point, she generally feels a lot of pain. Okay, and that's why I'm always trying to let both sides know, be very kind to the other side, because people on both sides are going through it. Like I said, men will love to beat up on a woman as far as her kindness is concerned, as far as her beauty is concerned. We beat up on black women all the time, okay, when it comes to those things. But at the same time, a lot of men want a pass when it comes to, okay, their money, their ability to lead. These are the two things that generally stir up a lot of men, and it causes them a lot of pain. And what I find is that a lot of women have no compassion for a man that has money problems and or has leadership problems. Okay, see, there's no compassion. So men have no compassion, and then women have no compassion. And I'm saying, as a Christian, you should always have compassion. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stay with them. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to date them. It doesn't mean you have to marry them, but you should have compassion because Jesus will have compassion on you. Okay? Now, again, let's solve this. The issue always is simple. It's about doing the work. And like I told you, the first 18 years of your life, your parents were supposed to teach you how to do the work. And if they did not teach you, now that you're an adult, okay, you need to quickly learn how to do the work. Most people that do the work, it is a habit. It is something that they do every single day. Okay, it is something that they're learning from all the time and growing, and that's the key. See, there are boys that when those boys were 13, 14, 15 years old, their dad or their mom sat down with them and talked to them about money, talked to them about budgeting, talked to them about different ways that they could move. Like my dad was an entrepreneur, and he would talk to me a lot of times about entrepreneurship. And I actually had my very first business at 14 years old. So even now when I'm out here on the internet, I have no real worries about it because it doesn't scare me, because I was taught to do it. And in my life, I've probably had about 7 or 8 businesses. Okay. And I'll continue to probably make more, as I get older. But see, that's the whole point. It starts somewhere, and it generally starts in your youth. And same thing for women. Women are taught, little girls are taught, okay, how to sit, how to put on makeup if they're going to wear makeup, how to do their hair, how to dress well, how to walk in heels. All these things happen when they are young. Okay, it doesn't pop up at 30. But if it's never happened to you, male or female, you can still change now. And yes, it's going to take time, but it's like with anything at time. I swear, it seemed like yesterday I was making my very first video in this new string of videos. And I think I'm about 3 weeks away right now from that 1 year mark. And it's like I blinked and it's been a year. And I've been saying similar things like this, for now a year. And so if you're one of the people that's been following me, for at least 6 or 7 months, you could have changed your whole life in 6 months. It does not take that long to really learn how to do much of anything. Okay. And if you've had any background in it and you just stopped for a while, it doesn't take your body long, to get back, in the saddle, so to speak. It's like people talk about riding a bicycle. You'll never forget. Well, I can tell you from being, because I got on a bicycle about 5 years ago from a friend, because he was riding his and I was like, yo, let me ride it. And it took me about a minute or two to get back into the hang of it. But once, I had that 1 or 2 minutes, I was back in the flow. And see, that's the whole point. Okay, it doesn't take that long to get back in the rhythm once you know how to be in the rhythm in the first place. But anyone can change their lives. And I think on this channel, that's what I would rather focus on. I don't want to focus on do men need to do this or women need to do this and all this other kind of stuff. What I'm encouraging everyone to do is to take this information and become better. Okay, but many times we take it, we look at it, and then we scroll to the next video, okay, without really taking in our hearts, because what can end up happening is we'll end up 5 years from now talking about how lonely we are. And a lot of men, I know a lot of you all are watching, you don't like to lean into that. You want to say, oh, the women are lonely, I'm not lonely. But let's be real, okay, for a minute. Men have emotions, all right? We're not these rocks, okay, that are on this earth. And we can feel loneliness, we can feel pain, okay? We can feel like someone hasn't, reached us and nobody cares about us and no one really sees us. Okay, we go through the very same things that women do. We just look at it a little bit differently, but we do go through it. And so it's very important, for you to be honest with yourself as a man. And I'm always, like I say, I always talk about these types of videos I wish more men would watch, because these are the types of videos, again, that, I feel like I'm out here to help men as well as to help women. I'm not out here to beat up on either side. Now, there are problems that I think that women need to fix, but I also think that there's problems that men need to fix. And I know every single day I'm trying to learn myself. And that's why I use myself as an example all the time of things I'm trying to fix. Okay. But for the men out there, I wouldn't worry about this new trend if you are 39, 40, whatever it is. What I would be more concerned about is trying to do the things you need to do in order to fix this. Okay? And that's really it. Because what a lot of women are looking for is security. Okay? And they don't like their time wasted. So for the men out there, I would encourage you, when you're with women, especially if you're in this age, and especially right now since everybody's talking about it, that you would discuss those things with the women, that you would let them know that, hey, everything's okay. And remember, you're supposed to lead. Okay, so it has to be you first. It has to be you that's taking that initiative. It has to be you that's making her feel secure, right? But again, if you have no intentions of being with her or whatever, you can date her for 2 or 3 months. But like I said, as you start to get to that 90-day mark, if it ain't looking like it's going to work, you need to let her go because it's not fair to her. So anyway, again, let you all know, like I say, generally first and third Wednesdays, we do lives. So if you want to come out and check that out, please do. But until then, please like and subscribe. And I'm going to see you all in the very next video.